Good morning, children. Let's continue with the fourth part of tourism, transport and communication. Now, in the previous session, we had discussed about Brazilian time. Now, because of the vast longitudinal extent of Brazil, we have 4 time zones. Now, the westernmost point is called Nascente do Rio Moa, and the easternmost point is called Ponta dos Seixas. Now, as I said, Brazil has 4 time zones, and these time zones are behind the Greenwich Mean Time by 2, 3, 4 and 5 hours. Brazilian time or BRT is behind GMT by 3 hours. Okay? Now, let's continue with development of communication in Brazil. Now, when you look into telecommunication services in Brazil, we find they are very, very efficient and well developed. This telecommunication industry includes landlines as well as mobile services, television broadcasting, radio broadcasting and computer access. You're all familiar with landlines, okay, as well as mobile services, mobile phones, okay, etc. Now, 45% of Brazilian population has access to the internet. The telecommunication infrastructure is fairly modern, particularly in central south Brazil. Okay, so when you take the central part as well as the southern part of Brazil, we find the telecommunication infrastructure is fairly modern. That is, it is quite developed, or in other words, telecommunication services are very, very developed in the central as well as the southern part of Brazil. But in the northern as well as the northwestern part of Brazil, it is less developed. But in the recent years, we find mobile phones have led to the rapid expansion of telecommunication services in Brazil. Okay, so now, as I said, mobile phones, you can carry it with you. You can use it anywhere, okay, wherever you are, you can use it. Unlike the landlines, which we were using years back, okay. So, we find the mobile phones have led to a rapid expansion of telecommunication services in Brazil. Now, the nature of Brazilian territory. See, remember when we had done the physical features of Brazil, we find we had learnt about the plateau region, the Brazilian highlands. Okay, most of the part of Brazil is a plateau. So, because of the nature of Brazil, okay, the terrain of Brazil, the landmass, the size, as well as large pockets of unpopulated and densely vegetated areas, there's a lot of hindrance to the expansion in coverage of telecommunication services. So, if you take the Amazon region, for example, okay, the Amazon region is covered with dense forests, and hence we find it is unpopulated. It's a swampy region, it's unpopulated, okay, because of the swampy nature as well as because of its heavy rainfall. So you find these regions create impediments to the expansion in coverage of telecommunication services. Brazil is also developing technology to send domestically made satellites into space with its own rockets. Okay, so as in India, in Brazil also technology, Brazil is also developing its technology, okay, to send satellites into space with its own rockets. The Brazilian Space Agency is a civilian authority in Brazil responsible for countries expanding space program. Okay. The Brazilian Space Agency has pursued a policy of joint technological development with more advanced space programs. Okay, so the Brazilian Space Agency is responsible for expanding its space program, and it is also pursuing a policy of joint technological development. Okay, with more advanced space programs. Now, here this shows us the east-west expanse of India. All right. So towards the western side, you find we have the longitude. Okay, 68 degrees 7 minutes east longitude, and on the eastern side, okay, you can see 97 degree 25 minutes east longitude. Okay, then passing through almost that is the Indian Standard Time. Okay, so our Indian Standard Time is based on the 82.5 degree east longitude, which passes through Allahabad. Okay, so now when you take the east-west expanse, okay, that is between the extreme, that is between the westernmost and the easternmost extremes, we find the difference is 120 minutes or 2 hours. Okay, that is the reason why in India we have only one standard time, one standard time for the whole country, unlike in Brazil, which is 4 different, okay, time zones. Is that clear? Now, come to communication in India. Before that, what is the difference between the 2 longitudinal extremes of mainland India? Okay, now, so we are taking the western and the eastern longitudes. The western longitude, westernmost extreme point is 68 degrees 7 minutes east longitude, and the easternmost point, okay, eastern extreme point is 97 degree 25 minutes east longitude. Okay, so now difference between these 2 longitudes comes to 30 degrees. Okay, now how do you convert that into hours? Now 1 degree is 15 minutes. Okay, so how do you 1 degree is 4 minutes. Okay, so 30 degree is equal to, so 30 into 4, 120, okay, minutes. So 120 minutes is equal to 2 hours. Understood? So that is how you convert, okay, degree into minutes and hours. Okay, so the difference between the 2 longitudinal extremes of mainland India is 30 degree. So when you convert that into hours, as I said, 1 degree will be equal to 4 minutes. So 30 degree will be equal to 30 into 4, that is 120 minutes. 120 minutes is equal to 2 hours. Which longitude in India is called the Indian Standard Time? Okay, it's also called IST. So look at this. Now, this is the Indian Standard Time. This is the longitude, 82 degree 30 minutes east. Okay, so the 82.82 degree 30 minutes east longitude is called the Indian Standard Time. It's also called 82.5 degree east longitude. What is the difference between IST time and GMT? Now, as India is in the eastern hemisphere, places which are in the eastern hemisphere are always ahead of GMT or Greenwich Mean Time. Now, as India is in the eastern hemisphere, India is 5.5 hours ahead of GMT. So, difference between IST and GMT is 5 hours 30 minutes. How many local times are there in India? So if you have understood, we are taking the Indian Standard Time based on 82.5 degrees longitude. So we have only one local time zone in India. Now, so let us come to explanation of our, Indian Standard Time. Okay, so India has a large longitudinal extent, just like in Brazil, but comparatively, we find our longitudinal extent is somewhat, smaller, but still we have a large longitudinal extent. The difference between the two extremest points is 2 hours or 120 minutes. So as I had explained, taking into consideration the easternmost and the westernmost points in India, we found the difference between them was 2 hours or 120 minutes. India has only one standard time zone. The 82.5 degrees longitude is the Indian Standard Time. So as I said, unlike in Brazil, where we have 4 time zones, in India, we have only one standard time zone, and it is dependent on the 82.5 degree east longitude, which passes through Allahabad. And the Indian Standard Time is ahead of the Greenwich Meridian Time, or GMT, by 5 hours 30 minutes. With the explosion of the electronic media, telecom industry has become one of the fast-growing sectors. So, as the electronic media goes on expanding, we find telecom industry is growing at a fast rate. Now, in this era of information and communication, more digitally enhanced communication devices like mobile phones, internet and satellites are paving way to expansion for the wider reach of communication technology. Okay, so as there is advancement in the field of information communication, we find the more digitally enhanced communication devices like say mobile phones, internet and satellites are paving the way for expansion of the communication technology. Now, just like in other countries, India too is one of the largest users of smartphones and the internet. With development of our own satellites, India has come a long way in this field. Okay, so as with the development of satellites, India also has our own satellites. Okay, so we have come a long way in this field. ISRO, that is Indian Space Research Organization, looks after space launching programs of India. Okay, so ISRO, that is Indian Space Research Organization, looks after the space launching programs of India. This institute has also established many records in the satellite launch. Okay, so the Space Research Organization is looking after space launching programs of India, and it has set many records in launching satellites into orbit. Okay, so children, with this we finish this lesson, tourism, transport, tourism and communication. Go through this lesson. Okay, so in the next session we'll discuss some important questions, okay, based on this lesson. Till then, thank you.